Okay, so we've gone ahead and welded the frame up completely at this point. Welded along here where the factory didn't weld. We've got that all filled in, completely filled in through this area here. As you can see, that's going to be very strong, all the way around both tubes. Also weld across this. This really isn't mandatory, but it's not too tough to do while you got the welder fired up, and just kind of helps tie it together a little bit more. And then here is a shot of the gusset on the bottom welded in. You can see it just completely ties everything together. So the next step is going to be putting the battery box in. And like I showed you before, the battery box will just kind of set right on top of there. Make sure before you start welding it, you grind the paint or powder coat, depending on the year of your bike, off of the backbone right here. It's pretty hard to weld over the top of paint. These are the side plates that we showed you earlier. This is only on the narrow frames. The wide frames actually, because of the offset on your sprocket, you need to clear the wide tires, come with a battery box that will just cover all this in one chunk. But like I mentioned before, on the skinny frames, especially if you're running a belt, you just cannot get past this plate here, or you will have clearance issues with your drive belt. So we send them to you like this in a few pieces. As you can see, that this particular one fits really nice up against there. Different guy might have welded your frame than welded this one. You might have a little bit bigger weld right here to contend with, or the shape of this might be different. If your bike's 20 years different in age than this one is, you may have to come in here and do a little trimming on this plate. It never takes very much. I've never had to grind more than 1/16 of an inch off of a corner of one of these somewhere to get them to fit in there nice. This plate here will set right in the top, just like that. You might wonder why we have a gap here in this plate, and we had a gap here on the bottom plate. That's because of the factory spot weld right there. It just gets you around that. By the time you get it all welded up, you'll never see it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all fitted in and welded up. Set the camera down for that. So we'll pick it back up after that. So here's the battery box all welded up. As you can see, I welded all the way around the backbone here. Welded the separate pieces in like we talked about. Just try to make sure now everything's nice and flush. This is the original part of the transmission mount here. These are the R plates that we welded in. You just don't want this sticking out past that. What I'm going to do next is grind the rest of this tube for your swing arm off so it's flat with the rest of it. Then we're going to go ahead and plug that too. That way when it's all done, it's just all nice and smooth and just looks really good. That way after you paint it or powder coat it or whatever you're going to do there, it just looks like one nice big fluid piece. Here I've just taken a piece of solid shaft. This was a little chunk I had laying around the shop. You can use a piece off of your original swing arm pivot bolt if you want. Slide that in the hole, weld it all up, grind it smooth, and the whole plate will look nice and smooth on the side. Okay, so as you can see here, I've got everything welded and smooth. I've welded the hole shut where the original swing arm pivot went. This has no filler in it. This is all just welded it up and grind it smooth with one of those flap discs that we showed you in the earlier videos. This thing is welded. I mean, it's done. Hardtail's done. Other than just going around and buffing this down, a lot of times what I'll do here is just use a file, just so I don't make sure I don't undercut anything. It's a little more time consuming and tedious, but if it's a winter project or something you got time to kill, you know, an hour with a file will do a really nice job, or 30 minutes even. Pretty much the only thing left hardtail related on this is putting the oil tank in. And if you buy your complete kit from us with the oil tank when you order it, the oil tank bracket will already be welded in the bike. I'm going to go ahead and put it in because that's what we're going to run on this particular bike anyway. That way you can see how it looks all mounted up. And from there we'll go ahead and we'll probably show you what fenders we're using, the different types of fender mounts for the back. We use some chrome sissy bars, or we do make our own set of fender struts if you don't want to run a sissy bar. Both of which will just mount through this axle hole here, axle plate hole. So that's pretty much it for putting the hardtail on. So just stay tuned for more videos on finishing this bike up.